all come to see and to hear from Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, ladies and gentlemen. Long legs.
Hello. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Charlie Kirk. I am from Chicago, Illinois.
Go Bears, baby!
One year we will win another Super Bowl if we can't hit a field goal by hitting the post. The fun thing about being from Illinois is we have term limits in Illinois. A little different than most states. It's 1 term in office, 1 term in jail. So when we asked for our former governor's cell number, actually means cell number. We have more former governors in prison than not in prison. So my grandmother was a lifelong Republican from the north side of Chicago, passed away in the mid-1990s, and she's been voting Democrat ever since. This kind of gives you an idea of the kind of political climate I come from. It's good to be in Idaho, where you know where all the Democrats are. That's nice. I hear this is the most conservative state, the most conservative part of the most conservative state. So, pretty thrilled about that. Quite different because I come from what some person called Magga country. It's really not Magga country. As soon as I heard Jussie Smollett say that 2 guys wearing Make America Great Again hats in -4-degree weather came and poured bleach on him with a rope and said, "This is MAGA country," something I've never heard a Trump supporter ever say within 200 square miles of Chicago. I said, this guy is a pathological liar. And everyone comes out and the media says, "Oh, how dare you say such a thing." I tell you right now, there is no way that 2 guys wearing MAGA hats, I've never even seen a MAGA hat in Chicago before, okay? If you wear a red hat, they'll arrest you just because you might be wearing a color hat. I'm half kidding, by the way. So it's great to be amongst like-minded folks that believe in God and believe in the Constitution and believe America is truly the greatest country ever to exist. It's so great to be around like-minded folks. So, I woke up this morning at CPAC, where our president gave a great speech today, and he was totally on fire. The longest speech of his presidency. I love the senator's remarks of what you said about how he is in person. Couldn't agree more. And I do have to say, what he has done in the face of relentless media attacks is truly historic. It really is. I like to say, if he walked on water, they would say he couldn't swim. And if he cured cancer, CNN headline: Donald Trump puts doctors out of business. That's how they would attack him. And time again, he does exactly what he said he was going to do on the campaign trail. He's the first American president to ever be attacked for doing what he said he was going to do. And I feel as if we're living in a tale of 2 different Americas. And I agree that socialism's on the rise. I've been saying that for a couple of years. What I might disagree, though, is where I hear we'll never be a socialist country. I don't know. And I wish I could say that with authority. Because what I do, for those that don't know, I run a nonprofit called Turning Point USA. I founded it when I was 18 years old. Thank you. We have amazing voices in our ranks, such as Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum and Kyle Kashu, some of the most outspoken conservatives in the entire movement. And our job is to fight on over 1,400 high school and college campuses for 3 big things: American exceptionalism, free market capitalism, and the Constitution. That's it. That's what we fight for. And so, when I hear the statement, America will never be a socialist country, I want to believe that. I really do. But my answer currently is I don't know because, folks, I'm telling you right now, Cortez is a moderate compared to most college students right now. Moderate. They have hatred for, the universities are teaching hatred for America to our youth. The greatest threat to our country is colleges and universities right now. Number one threat to our country, without a shadow of a doubt. They are programming hatred into the minds of our youth. To hate America, to hate free markets, to hate the idea of God, to hate the flag, to hate everything that we stand for, to hate our veterans. And I go to these college campuses, it's not that students are inherently opposed to our value system, it's that they've not been exposed to it all in the first place. It's that far too often I hear people say, well, Charlie, college campuses are a place where different ideas are allowed to be exchanged. So you must be talking about a far different place than universities today. These are islands of totalitarianism, where Marxist ideology has become mainstream, where students are indoctrinated, not educated, where if you dare disagree with the professor, your grade will be lowered. That if you might start a college conservative group like Turning Point USA at University of California, Berkeley, you might get punched in the face, which is what happened 2 weeks ago. And in the most amazing poetic justice, today at CPAC, and I had to watch it at 35,000 feet as I was coming to meet with you amazing folks, I saw President Trump call that very student activist on stage with him today at CPAC and announce to the world that he's signing an executive order saying, if you do not protect the free speech of all Americans, I'm going to withhold federal funding for your institutions. Long overdue. Something that I've been saying for many years, I talked about in my book, Campus Battlefield, where I have a whole chapter on how the federal government and the U.S. Congress needs to do real oversight of these universities in many different ways. And if you want to know, I hear all the time, AOC, ABC, I kind of like that was funny. What happens on campus will soon happen, is what happens in Congress. Right now you see campus coming to Congress. And students are taught to adore Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's constantly wrong, but never in doubt. But there's more coming, folks. There'll be 100 of her in the next 5 years. 100. The Democrat Party is dead. It is now the cultural Marxist identity politics socialist party. If you don't believe me, look at where the energy of that party is. You can always tell the heart and soul of a party based on where the energy is. Who's filling up the rallies? Who's raising the small dollar donations? Joe Biden had to apologize for complimenting Vice President Mike Pence 2 days ago. To give you an idea of how indecent their party has become. And I love what the senator said about kind of this tale of two different realities. But if you look at the most parallel reality of where the Democrat Party is, their base stems from the colleges and universities. And I hear a lot, one big thing in Republican circles far too often. Well, Charlie, the Democrats, they mean well. We want the same thing, we just have a different way of getting there. Who's heard this before? Who's maybe said this before? The Democrats do not want what we want anymore. In the 1960s and 70s, I think JFK versus Nixon, they both had some contempt for communism. I think they both loved America. I think they both wanted to see a stronger nation. They just had different ways of getting there in the 1960 presidential election. Jimmy Carter versus Reagan in the 1980 presidential election. One was an unbelievably weak person. One was a strong leader that revitalized our country. I think they probably both loved America. We know Reagan did. I don't think Carter hated America. I really don't. The Democrat Party does not want what we want anymore. They don't. And never again should we say, well, we want the same thing, we have different ways to get there. They want to take us in a completely different direction. They don't mean well. When you send billions of dollars to Iran in the middle of the night in forms of cash, you don't mean well. When you don't stand with Israel, you don't mean well. When you somehow think it's okay to penalize a Christian baker in Colorado because he doesn't want to make a cake against his religious beliefs, you don't mean well. When you vote to be able to have the freedom to execute a newborn child that survives an abortion, you don't mean well. When you vote to give Planned Parenthood an abortion factory $500 million a year, you don't mean well. When you support the deplatforming of conservatives on Facebook, Google, and Twitter, you don't mean well. When you run one of the most disgraceful hearings I've seen in recent memory with a convicted felon liar while the president is negotiating denuclearization, you don't mean well. You hate Donald Trump much more than you love America. Folks, this is not the Democrat Party of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They don't mean well. And that sickens me to say that. But the problem that we are facing in the American left is one that could truly corrode the fabric and the soul of this great country. And culture is defined by three big buckets, whether it's family first, then it's academia, then it's media, and all three are directly related. And so what we have now is, I believe, we're entering the greatest culture war since in probably over 150 years. Where it's not even a culture war that we've had in the 80s and 90s where we talked about Judeo-Christian values. It's the simple question of what is America? Who are we? If you ask the Democrat Party, ask Kamala Harris, she announces for president. She says, we are a racist, bigoted, homophobic, xenophobic country. I say, boy, that sounds like a horrible place. Why do you want to be president of a place like that? Why the hell are you running for president? Like, it sounds horrible. Like, why do you want to be president? We are the most benevolent, creative, altruistic, forward-thinking, productive country ever to exist. The question we must ask is the world a better place because of America? Of course.
That's right.
Of course. Of course it is. South Korea exists because of America. The Nazis were defeated because of America. Western society exists because of us. We fall, the world falls. It's that simple. And so we have a choice. The choice is, do we succumb to these forces that believe identity politics is their religion? They believe in victimology over anything else, that somehow victimhood should be rewarded and heralded. I believe that we should be victors, not victims. That's the story of America. It always has been. Doesn't matter where you come from. Doesn't matter what's happened to you. You can come here and make a better life for yourself. Should we be a country that wants to feel good instead of doing good, like the American left believes in? Do we want a country that wants everyone to look different but think the same that the American left embraces? The easy answer to all of us in this room is, of course we don't. Well, then there's only one institution that we have to confront head on. That is the key reason why we are seeing what we are seeing, and that's the universities and the colleges, single-handedly. And yes, it goes into the high schools, and yes, it goes into the textbooks, but the real battlefield is the colleges. No place more important. If you look back in the 30s, where the Marxist ideology stemmed from, it was the Frankfurt School in Germany. And you can study the exact playbook that has been implemented here in our own very country. And so that's what I'm dedicating my life to. I travel the country nonstop. I'm on the road 345 days a year. I speak on over 100 college campuses. We now have active chapters in all 50 states. Like I mentioned, we're present on 1,400 high school and college chapters across the country. We have a very, very big digital and social media footprint. But I'll tell you, we're not doing nearly enough. We're not. And one of the things that always bothers me, and I don't want to call anyone else out in particular in this room, but why on earth are conservatives still giving money to their alma mater? I don't know, unless you went to Hillsdale or Liberty, then I get that. If you went to Hillsdale College or Liberty, chances are most conservative donors haven't. But I look at Harvard. Harvard has a $58 billion endowment. That's the GDP of like Bulgaria, okay, is their endowment. And yet they still get millions and millions of dollars in gifts every single week. To do what? To support the destruction of the very country that allowed their success to be possible. If you actually look at who gives the money to these universities, I encourage you to go walk around. If you're ever in the Bay Area, go walk around Stanford. Go walk and see whose names are on these buildings. These are conservatives. Conservatives have voluntarily given hundreds of billions of dollars over the last 20 years to the left so that they can indoctrinate their grandkids to hate the country that they were able to be successful in. See, the left is very smart. If they were given a choice, would you rather control politics in the short term or culture in the long term? And they said, oh, we'll control culture. Are you kidding me? If you want to know why abortion on demand is permissible, it's because they control the media, and they control Hollywood, and they control filmmaking, and they control where the minds are formed. And so we do control the U.S. Senate, thank God. We do have a 5-4 majority in the Supreme Court, thank goodness. We stood by Justice Kavanaugh during one of the most disgraceful public character assassinations in American history. Thank goodness. But it was close. It was 51-48, right? If I remember correctly. Because Steve Daines had something in Montana, and then Joe Manchin came over. I think it was 50-48. I'm sorry, 50-48. Close. Democrat Party 20 years ago would have confirmed Brett Kavanaugh there would have been 80 votes together in the U.S. Senate. Not anymore, because the political nature is just a byproduct of the cultural reality. As the great Andrew Breitbart said, and he passed away 7 years ago yesterday, politics is downstream from culture. And President Trump, I believe, will decisively win re-election in 2020. I believe that. I believe it. Which segues, thank goodness, for the Electoral College. At the Electoral College, we'd be in a lot of trouble. One of the brilliance of the Founding Fathers to make sure we wouldn't have tyranny of the majority and tyranny of the urban centers and the elites. One of the greatest mechanisms that they created for decentralization of power and true representation of the electorate. Absolutely brilliant. And they're going after that, by the way. That will be a key pillar of the Democrat Party to abolish the Electoral College. You want to talk about Idaho having 0 to no voice? That would happen in basically an instant if they get rid of the Electoral College. So it's a culture war. And the good news, the optimism is, when students are exposed to our ideas, they gravitate to it in record numbers. Here's how you know we can win. We're not winning. We are not winning. But we can win, and we are making progress. If our ideas were so bad, colleges would not do everything they possibly could to make sure I couldn't speak on that college campus. If our ideas were so bad, they wouldn't show up with 200 paid protesters to try to demagogue and call Candace Owens, a black woman, a white supremacist, which I still can't figure out how that one works. If our ideas were so bad, they wouldn't try to defund our Turning Point USA groups all across the country. If our ideas were so bad, they wouldn't come with reporters trying to misrepresent everything that we say. The reason is they know that true debate, dialogue, and discussion is a threat to them. They don't want a marketplace of ideas. They want a monopoly. Because when students are exposed to, well, maybe that socialism thing has been tried before 100 times over the last 100 years, and it's wrecked every country, every civilization, every culture it's come in contact with. Maybe we should not embrace something we already have a tremendous amount of data and evidence behind. When students are exposed to these facts and these ideas, they say, oh, I haven't heard that before. Tell me more. See, the left is they're very smart, but they're very sinister. You must remember this. So they prevent these ideas from being heard at all. And that's where we come in, where we're able to liberate students. You'll say, this exists, that we are the greatest nation state, the greatest experiment in the history of the world, that free market capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than ever before, that President Trump, since January 20th, 2017, we now have the lowest ever black unemployment rate, the lowest ever Hispanic unemployment rate, the lowest ever female unemployment rate, the lowest ever disability unemployment rate. We're energy independent for the first time basically ever, so we don't have to buy oil from places like Saudi Arabia or Russia anymore. Yes, we did move the embassy in Jerusalem, and no, it didn't cause conflict in the entire region. Yes, we did delete the Iran deal, where we were sending billions of dollars, $150 billion in sanction relief to a country that hates our guts, that funds terrorism all across the world. Yes, the Korean War is coming to an end because of peace through strength style diplomacy, but direct style conversation that only a billionaire non-politician from Manhattan could negotiate in defiance of all the experts that couldn't get a meeting over the last 50 years. They couldn't get a meeting over the last 50 years. we can achieve 4% economic growth again. Yes, cutting 22 regulations for every new regulation works. Yes, the lowest ever youth unemployment means that every single college student that is hearing this message means you have a better chance for a higher wage and a better life. Try to tell me exactly, Democrats, what you're resisting. What do you disagree with in that long line of success? And that's just a taste of it. Just a taste. And the reason they hate him is because he was never supposed to be president. They were so close. They were so close. And I'm an evangelical Christian, and I truly believed that it was a God thing that he won. I truly believe it. And the media attacks me all the time. They say, how dare you say that? Basically, they say, wait, you believe in God? It's like this amazing thing. Manhattan, God's not exactly a popular thing in Manhattan. So yes, I believe that the election of Donald Trump was because of millions of people praying for divine intervention. I believe he's one of the most prayed for presidents in American history. I really do. Everywhere I go, I hear people, they say, I pray for Donald Trump on my hands and knees for hours. And don't stop, because prayer is not just a therapeutic exercise, like some of the people try. It's a conversation with the Almighty, where if enough people, what do the scriptures say, two or more gather in my name, I'm with them. And enough Christians and enough believers continue to plead to God to give us more time to try to stop this scourge of darkness in our country, that maybe the most unlikely of all leaders, Donald Trump, could continue to protect the greatest, most moral nation ever to exist, who, by the way, has been the greatest friend of Christians and evangelicals and pro-lifers in American history, without a shadow of a doubt. He is the most pro-life president in American history. Cutting funding the Planned Parenthood, rescinding the Mexico City policy, speaking at the March for Life, saying unequivocally in defiance to the Democrat Party, we're not going to be a country that will ever support post-birth abortion. You saw what that Democrat governor of Virginia said. What he did 30 years ago with the blackface, I think, is reprehensible. What's truly reprehensible is how he described so calmly on a radio station, where he said a baby will be delivered and we'll relax that baby, and then a decision will be made of what to do. And any honest journalist would say, Governor Northam, what exactly decision needs to be made there? What you're trying to say is that there needs to be a conscious decision between life and death. And I understand there's a lot of different positions on abortion, but there should be consensus that once a child is a sentient being outside of the womb, that child deserves the same protection as any other person in a civil society. And the Democrat Party, every single Democrat running for president voted against protecting those children. It isn't fantasy. And so the mission is not easy here. It's going to be a decades-long battle against the left. A couple things I've learned about the left. Stop giving them the benefit of good intentions. I mentioned that earlier. They want to destroy everything they come in contact with. Everything. The left destroys everything they touch. They tried to destroy the NFL. They almost did. No, seriously. They destroyed popular culture. Late night comedy is no longer funny. It's now political hate with applause. People don't laugh. You actually listen to the audience of late night comedy. There's no laughter. There's just applause. It's former comedians now play acting as political pundits, and they're not even good at it. Long lost are the days of Jay Leno, where he used to be an equal opportunity offender. The left is trying to destroy the American church. They're trying everything they can through the infiltration of many sort of different denominations on the Protestant side. You can see the direction that they're taking. The left has totally destroyed the school system. We talked about that earlier. The left has destroyed our inner cities. If you want to talk about a moral disservice, what the left has done to the black community in this country is one of the greatest moral disgraces that I could possibly think of. And make no mistake, they own this. You want to see an American ghetto? I'll show you a Democrat in charge. Philadelphia, Chicago, Atlanta, Oakland, all Democrat city council, all Democrat mayors, all Democrat congresspeople. The last Republican mayor of Chicago, 1931. They own this. They are a force of destruction. And it's important to remember there's a difference between liberals and leftists. Liberals are an endangered species. I can think of one, Alan Dershowitz. Done. That's it. And even he's probably becoming more conservative lately.
Yes.
A leftist is someone who first and foremost thinks about hating something rather than being thankful for something. That's what a leftist is. They're angry they live in America, not thankful they live in America. They'd rather see less rich people than more rich people out of poverty. For them, it's much more about hating the rich than helping the poor. These people are driven by envy and greed and destruction. Everything they do is about burning down institutions. Look carefully at the language of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She says, we live in a horrible country. We live in a country with such past sins that we can't get past it until we truly redefine who we are as a people. Boy, that's dangerous language. That's stuff of the Russian Revolution, folks. I don't say that lightly. Read the history, read the language. We do not have a perfect history, but we do have a great one. She says, when was America ever great? How about Iwo Jima? That was pretty great. Or how about when we came into the European theater and defeated Nazi Germany? That was pretty great. Or how about when the Berlin Wall fell and we defeated communism? That wasn't that long ago. 25, 30 years ago. People forget. We had a first-person example of the ideology now of the American left juxtaposed with freedom, free markets, and free enterprise. And how we didn't defeat it by firing missiles or shooting rifles. We defeated it through economic productivity, better ideas, values, defense of the nation state, and an unequivocal defense of Western society. And it took one president to turn all around. In 1979, we were not on pace to destroy the Soviet Union. We were plagued by stagflation, with a president who said, you better get used to being mediocre. Where our enemies laughed and scoffed at us, where hostages were taken in Iran and there was no such thing as strength. And it took one man who ran an unconventional campaign and won a surprise election in 1980, who they called reckless. Sound familiar? Who they said was kooky. Sound familiar? Who they said doesn't know what he's doing. Sound familiar? Who said took too much personal time in his residence. Sound familiar? Who said he can't negotiate overseas. When he walked away in Reykjavik against Gorbachev because he said, I'm not giving up the Strategic Defense Initiative, I'm going to walk away from this deal. That was the breaking point against the Soviet Union. When he walked away in Reykjavik, and all of a sudden the Soviet Union said, I don't know anymore. And then that was the beginning of the end of one of the great evils of the 20th century. And then under H.W. Bush, the wall finally fell. I think we were pretty great at that moment. And if you ask the American youth about any of this in the last 20 or 30 years, they have no clue. Instead, it's this utter fixation on the 1950s and 60s, misrepresenting those periods of times, by the way, saying that somehow it was Republicans and conservatives that were the practitioners of the great sins of racism. When in reality, the party of KKK, and the party of Jim Crow, and the party of plantations, and the party of segregationists is the Democrat Party. Republicans were the party. The Republican Party was founded in 1860 as an anti-slavery party. It has been consistent through the ethos of the Republican Party to be a party of freedom and individual thought and liberation. It has been consistent to this day of the Democrat Party to be a party of control and dependency and anti-individualism. And that line continues straight to this day. Only one side of the aisle today stood and applauded when we had the record low black unemployment. Every person in the U.S. Congress should have stood up and said, this is a good thing for America. Now, why wouldn't the left stand in the State of the Union 2 years in a row? We have 2 test cases now when President Trump exclaimed them. Because the left needs people to need them. When people's lives get better, leftists get highly irrelevant. When people start to be self-sufficient, the Democrat Party becomes totally futile. You mean I don't need food stamps anymore? By the way, 5 million people are off food stamps since President Trump got inaugurated. 5 million people. The left needs people to need them. When people start to get their lives better, and they see churches growing in attendance and communities getting stronger and families staying together and single motherhood going down, all of a sudden they don't need the identity politics of hatred and division where the left tries to sow. They don't need them anymore. In fact, they walk away from it. So the left has to do everything it possibly can to keep people poor, to keep them dependent, and to keep them divided. I love that term unity. I love that. I believe that Democrats in the 60s and 70s, some of them really wanted a united America. I believe that. I do not believe the Democrats of today want a united America. Barack Obama campaigned on the best intentions of Americans trying to be united. Remember when he said, there are no blue states, there are no red states, there are just the United States of America, to play on the Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, which means out of many one. It's part of the American Trinity. The American Trinity is three things, e pluribus unum, in God we trust, and liberty. Just like the Christian Trinity, we have our own Trinity here. They won't teach that in universities. But it's within all of us that believe in American values. But the left believes in great defiance of all three of those things. They don't believe in God we trust. They believe in government we trust. They don't believe out of many one. They believe divide at all costs. They definitely don't believe in liberty. They believe in serfdom. They believe in dependence. That's their Trinity. And so here's the good news, is that in the end, freedom almost always wins. I'm afraid that the conservative movement is way too naive of what we're facing. Way too naive. I see the contempt these people have for me, and for Candace Owens, and for Donald Trump, and for anyone that stands for what we stand for in this room. And I'm telling you, I don't hate anything as much as they hate us. I don't. I really don't. You saw it in a small microcosm at Berkeley where he smacked our activist in the face. Do you know what was so stunning about that video? No one tried to stop it. You know what video I'm talking about? You probably saw it on repeat. Those students came in and said, whoa, 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 that's not cool. That's not cool. Now, mind you, he was tabling basically alone. You know, he was walking away from his table confronted by this maniac punch in the face. Where were the other students that came up and said, this is not, no, because they support it? There were your University of California, Berkeley staff members that said, this is a good thing. This is what we do when conservatives come on campus. So folks, I'm telling you right now, they want the utter and complete destruction of everything that we hold near and dear. And we are, I believe, in a spiritual war as well. These folks, I'm telling you, they are driven by religious atheism. It's a religion in and of itself. They evangelize more than Christians do. And I always joke around with atheists. Look, you believe in no God, what's the big deal here? Like, why do you care? I mean, like, you got like, what, 32 years and 6 months left, and then it's all over. Like, why are you trying to convince me? I should be trying to convince you. I actually have a reason to try to convince you. I always tell them I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. No, the one that really drives them nuts is where I say, without God, there would be no atheists. And so, I love the emphasis of prayer here in Idaho. It's so important. Can't forget that because it's part of the American Trinity. In God we trust. Yes. And there's only one political party that booed God at their convention. It's the Democrat Party. Booed God at their convention. Because light hates darkness, and what they're fighting for is just darkness. Very, very sinister. And so, I'm going to keep fighting, and everyone in this room will keep fighting in places where conservatives have never won before. But do everything you possibly can to, of course, help this president, and do what you can with young people in this country understanding the threat. But realize from now, in the next month, in the next year, that the forces that we're up against here, they want to destroy this country from within, with everything they possibly can. And I know for one, I'm not going to let them do it to my dying breath, and all of you won't either. So thank you guys so much. God bless.